about chapter 8, it talks about Esther saves the Jews. On that day, King Ahasuerus gave to Queen Esther the house of Haman, the enemy of the Jews, and Mordecai came before the king, for Esther had told what he was to her. Basically, she revealed that Mordecai was her uncle. And the king took off his signet ring, which he had taken from Haman, and gave it to Mordecai. And Esther set Mordecai over the house of Haman. Then Esther spoke again to the king. She fell at his feet and wept and pleaded with him to avert the evil plan of Haman, the Agagite, and the plot that he had devised against the Jews. When the king held out the golden scepter to Esther, Esther arose and stood before the king. And she said, "If it pleases the king, and if I have found favor in his sight, and if the thing seems right before the king, and I am pleasing in his eyes, let an order be written to revoke the letters despised by Haman the Agagite, the son of Hamadiah, which he wrote to destroy the Jews who are in all the provinces of the king. For how can I bear to see the calamity that is coming to my people? Or how can I bear to see the destruction of my kindred?" And King Ahasuerus said to Queen Esther and to Mordecai the Jew, "Behold, they have given Esther the house of Haman, and they have hanged him on the gallows, because he intended to lay hands on the Jews. But ye may write as you please with regard to the Jews in the name of the king, and seal it with the king's ring. For an edict written in the name of the king and sealed with the king's ring cannot be revoked." The king's scribes were summoned at that time in the 3rd month, which is in the month of Sivan, on the 23rd day, and an edict was written according to all that Mordecai commanded concerning the Jews to the satraps and the governors and officials of the provinces from India to Ethiopia, which is 127 provinces. So the Persian Empire during Esther's time stretched from India all the way over to where Ethiopia is today, over into Africa. Huge empire, and it covered 127 countries. I mean, the Persian Empire was like one of the biggest empires ever on the earth. So to each province in its own script, and to each people in its own language, and also to the Jews in their script and in their language. And he wrote in the name of King Ahasuerus and sealed it with the king's signet ring. Then he went the letters by mounted couriers riding on swift horses that were used in the king's service, bred from the royal stud, saying that the king allowed the Jews who were in every city to gather and defend their lives, to destroy, to kill, and to annihilate any armed force of any people or province that might attack them, children and women included, and to plunder their goods. On one day throughout all the provinces of King Ahasuerus, on the 13th day of the 12th month, which is in the month of Adar, a copy of what was written was to be issued as a decree in every province, being publicly displayed to all people, and the Jews were to be ready on that day to take vengeance on their enemies. So basically, the king said, or the Jews, they were pretty much ready to take out whoever was coming to attack them. I mean, they were prepared. It says, so the couriers mounted on their swift horses that were used in the king's service rode out hurriedly, urged by the king's command, and the decree was issued in Susa, the citadel. Then Mordecai went out from the presence of the king in royal robes of blue and white, with a great golden crown and a robe of fine linen and purple, and the city of Susa shouted and rejoiced. The Jews had light and gladness and joy and honor, and in every province and every city, wherever the king's command and his edict reached, there was gladness and joy among the Jews, a feast and a holiday. Holiday is also I'm trying to think of it. Yeah, the holiday that they now celebrate for this is called Purim. It's basically whenever the Jews escaped, Haman's plot. It's just called Purim today, so they celebrate. And many from the people of the country declare themselves Jews for fear the Jews have fallen on them. So many people, that weren't Jews actually called themselves Jews because the fear of the Jews, fell upon them. They were scared that the Jews would retaliate, and they didn't. But they were just glad that Haman was stopped from destroying them. Praise God for that. So that's chapter 8 about Esther saves the Jews, and chapter 9 will be next.